everybody's spoken has been so brilliant, and I'm just kind of a weirdo. But I guess I'm going to talk about being turned on from my own life's experience and how living a turned-on life kind of can just keep propelling you forward and take you to some interesting places. So when Megan asked me, to do it, and she told me the point, what I'm supposed to talk about is what turns you on. There was never even a question. I was like, well, I'll just talk about music. I was something to say about that. Because my whole life I've been super turned on by music, and I can remember three distinct things from when I was very young. The first thing is I was in kindergarten, and I had a music teacher, Mrs. Radine, and she was just this beautiful, wafy sort of lady, and she played the auto harp, and we would sing folk songs in kindergarten, like Jimmy Crack Corn, and Puff the Magic Dragon, and This Land Is Your Land. She would strum them on the auto harp, and I can remember, right then, how that would, what those images and those songs and those lyrics would sort of do for me and make me see, and how she would let us strum the auto harp, and she'd hold down the minor key, like an A minor or a D chord, and the difference in the chords and how that sort of resonated with us, and how it made us feel, how the different tones and sounds of the chord what it would do for us. The second thing was, and I can picture it, it's like a compartment in my mind. I was driving with, my parents were driving, I was 8 years old, it was 1981, and John Lennon's Watching the Wheels came on. And I don't think I really knew what it meant at the time, but looking back on it, I remember it was a rainy day, and and that song, the lyrics, with being on the road, and how it all sort of came to focus in my head. And I think that's, now looking back on it, to me, it's like what the importance of a good song can do for us, and how it makes us see the world and maybe learn something about ourselves. So that was the second thing. And then the third thing, and then this is where it really all just kind of started snowballing, was, well, we had this little box connected to the TV. It had a wire, and we just got it, and it was, suddenly we had 30 channels and not 10, and playing around with it, and I landed on MTV, of course. And, the Apollo 11, and it's Apollo 11, right? Anyway,
yeah.
The rocket, the man landing on the moon, the MTV flag, planet. And then suddenly there were the people behind the songs, and how they expressed their individuality, how they related to the songs they were singing, and I was just hooked. And of course I made my parents, give me guitar lessons, and there was that for a second, but I was never really drawn to the math behind music or the theory. It was always the energy and the soul, and how it sort of made me feel inside. And so after that, it was, I would beg my dad to take me to Disco Mat and Calabro, and I'd spend hours, rifling through the record bins, and so I started collecting all this music by the time I was 10, and that was and it would just keep going, and I'd bring the records home, and I would internalize the lyrics, and I would try to understand where the artist was coming from, where the songwriter was, what his point of view was, how it related to me, how it related to the people around me, and so whatever, life goes on, and I wound up going to college, of course, and some of you might roll your eyes at this, but I'm in college and I discovered the Grateful Dead. And I know there's a lot of baggage that goes with that. But it was honestly like a very another sort of touchstone transformative moment for me, because I was a suburban kid and I grew up basically in a very conservative household, and everything was sort of spoon-fed, and here was this band that was just like taking it farther out and doing something different than the way everyone else had done it. And there was also a part of it where, as a music fan, suddenly I'd always been kind of studying the history of music. I was in high school, and the Allman Brothers, led me to Furry Lewis, and Furry Lewis led me back to Taj Mahal, and Taj Mahal led me back to Robert Johnson. But then you find the Grateful Dead, and they're drawn from the entire tapestry of American music. And so then John Coltrane is there, and then Johnny Cash is there, and Marty Robbins, and Miles Davis, and all that kind of that whole history of American music. But what it really made me realize is that we don't really have to, I didn't have to go to college. I had to go to college, and it actually made me want to learn more. It made me want to study more and learn about literature and learn about art. And but what it also made me do is realize that I don't have to get a 9-to-5 job when I graduate from college, and I can pursue this dream. And it made me. There's a line in the Grateful Dead song that says sure don't know what I'm going for, but I'm going to go for it. That's for sure. And that's exactly what it was. I didn't know where I was going or how I was going to get there, but I just kind of took that on as I've got to chase that energy, and I've got to let that energy drive me, and I've got to live with that feeling. And so I decided then and there that I wanted to be in the music business, and I wanted to work in music, not in the music business, but I wanted to work in music. And that's where it gets tricky, because I started working in the music business. Which, so I didn't really, like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I got a job at a music PR firm, a big entertainment PR firm. And I worked on the first Spice Girls campaign. I also worked on R. Kelly and all this sort of stuff there. What I wanted to do was I wanted to somehow be a conduit to the artists who made me, understand all this stuff about the world and want to see things and do things and experience things. And I wanted to be a conduit to in my head, and it sounds maybe a little corny, but I wanted to be I wanted to help bring that music into the world that parts the clouds and lets the sun shine down on us all, and that's what I wanted. But I'm in the music business now, working with people who music is product, and it's how do we make more money, how do we image this, how do we have a very funny memory of sitting in a photo shoot with this R&B singer that was managed by, or produced by Jelly Bean Benitez, who had done all this stuff with Madonna, and it was for Vibe magazine, and I'm the publicist, that's what I was doing, I was becoming a publicist. And the stylist looks at me, and she's going through the rack of clothes, and she's like, "Do you think this will look good on her?" And I'm just like, "Huh?" I'm like, "This is, So I had to kind of figure out what I was going to do, and there was a time there where it was really dark. I remember I was still living in Jersey. That wasn't meant to be a joke. And I was I'd ride the bus to firm I was working at every day, and it was rough. And I was thinking, like, you know, maybe I should start a cleaning business, or maybe I should just, you know, my brother had a big sort of corporate job, and I was like, maybe this is just all sort of bullshit, and I should just try to make some money and, you know, make my parents happy. But I didn't, and I knew I wasn't going to do that, and I made that my mind up, but I didn't really know how I was going to go forward. And this is where Joel Dorn comes into it. And I think in telling this story, it's the idea that if you just sort of believe and you stay turned on and you have faith that you're going to, like, it's just going to, your own energy is going to sort of carry you forward and find the places where you need to be. So I get in this elevator, and I start randomly talking to this guy who's on there, and I told him what I was doing, and he was working with this record producer, Joel Dorn, who had worked at Atlantic Records for 10 years and produced all this amazing music. Everything from Rosanna and Kirk to Roberta Flack to, as it turns out, Leon Redbone. And I actually had this Leon Redbone album in my collection from college. Coincidence. But so he's like, why don't you come in? And so I told him, I'm kind of starting to look for something else. I need to figure out what to do. I can't stand where I am. And he was like, come in. We're looking for somebody. He just started his own record label that was primarily doing jazz reissues. This was like at the time when compact discs were really like taking off, and they were converting all the old vinyl, the stuff that came out on vinyl cassette, to compact disc. And so I went in, and Joel was in his office, sitting in a lazy boy chair with stacks of records and prints from like photographers like David Garr and Herman Leonard, all around him. And I was just like, oh my God, this actually does exist. Like what? And I knew right then and there that I was at home. And so for 10 years after that, Joel and I, we did. I mean, obviously I was riding on his coattails, but he was exposing me to so much, and it was really amazing to be around that. He was like a real old school raconteur music producer. Like, he would tell you stories about getting high with Sonny Stitt at the back of in the alley behind the Showboat in Philadelphia, and he would tell you stories about playing poker with George Harrison and Dr. John, and he would tell you stories about, hanging out with Duane Allman, and at the time Atlantic had its own studios, and there were 3 and 4 studios going at any time during the day. Aretha was in one studio, and Clapton was in another, and so yeah, it was pretty amazing. And so we started a few labels together, and the last one we started was this label called Hyena Records, and Joel kind of had a falling out with the investor there, and I kind of continued to run it doing A&R, and with his blessing, he kind of left, but then not shortly after he passed away. So right after that, and not sure after that, I just decided that it was time for me to kind of start my own record label, and that's what I've been doing ever since. And I still do music PR, and this is another thing I wanted to get to. It's like, it's not like a way to get rich or anything, and the label barely pays for itself, and I still have to do all this side work to actually make the label run. And I just keep putting money into it, but it's like starting to break even. It's in its 3rd year now, and I just think that all comes from being turned on, like plugged in and lit up by something like on a daily basis, and I feel like everyone should find that thing and it doesn't have to be, you know, like I don't know if it has to be your career, but it's like if you have that, it kind of gives this whole other purpose to your life, I think. So, I guess, you know, that's really what I. But what I wanted to do. Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about. And living, you know, running a record label in 2011 is really hard because, as a lot of you probably know, everybody steals music now. And I'm just going to get on my soapbox for one minute. It's not because I mean, it is, I guess, because I run a record label, and partly because my livelihood, or what I hope will be my livelihood, depends on it. But, I mean, while it's sort of struck a, you know, blow to the corporate record labels, and I really think everyone here who's a fan of music needs to be aware that the music that's coming out, like a lot of it's almost like the equivalent to the way food and medicine is just sort of like marketed to us, not really about what it's really supposed to mean, you know, like I think we should be aware of that and kind of but that when it comes to music, we need to support, you know, we need to support real artists, and we all, I feel like maybe I'm speaking to the choir here, preaching to the choir, but if any of you guys like are on your computers late at night doing those torrent sites and stuff, and it's like you are stealing something from somebody, you know, and that's something that somebody took a lot. I put it like this: an artist basically makes an album, and that at the least equates to a year of their work. And somebody will basically, like I put out records with the label, and I'll put it out on a Tuesday. On a Wednesday, somebody will have put it on our SendSpace link, and then put it on a message board, like here's the new Yellowbirds album, or here's the new Marco Benevento record. And it's like, well, he just spent, you know, 16 months writing and recording and putting money into it, not to mention the money that it takes to promote it. So I just, you know, I'm not a purist about it. We all share music, you know, with friends and turn people on, but I think we really need to support the artists, and especially the independent ones, because they're sort of like the low-hanging fruit, and they're the first ones that sort of get knocked off the tree